So much like your father.
The doctors, they all want their drugs. And Big Pharma will spend everything they can to make sure that they get them.
I call you out, monster!
I've seen a man, a blind man who can see.
Okay, Batman, we'll take it from here. All right, listen up.
Valkyrie at my side is shouting and laughing with the pure, hateful, bloodthirsty joy of the slaughter.
Have you never done your quizzes yet? You gonna let me in any secret?
We're planting these flowers that we grew in the greenhouse.
Rosario Dawson was born and grew up with her mother in New York City. Dawson's mother had her when she was only 15 years old. While she doesn't know who her biological father is, the man her mother married after Rosario was born raised her as his own, and she considers him her father. Growing up, Dawson's family was very poor, and when she was 6 years old, Dawson's mother, herself only 22, moved the family to an abandoned, burned-out building as squatters as they were no longer able to afford the rent of the apartment they had been living in. The building had no electricity or running water, but over the years, Dawson's parents, with the help of neighbors, slowly fixed up the residence to make it more livable for the family. This included doing all of the plumbing and wiring himself. Dawson's first role was on a segment on Sesame Street, which featured neighborhood kids from New York City talking about the fun they had in a community garden. Dawson got the role because she knew someone living in her building who was dating a cameraman on the PBS show. She was paid $20 for the role.
Still my favorite way to get recognized when I've had little kids come and be like, are you on Sesame Street? I'm like, yes, I was.
When she was 15, she was discovered and cast by director Larry Clark for his upcoming film Kids. Clark was driving through New York City scouting locations for the film and noticed Dawson in front of her apartment with friends. Clark was determined to use unknown actors from the city to try and make the project feel more authentic. The film focused on a group of teens in New York during the AIDS crisis and was considered very controversial to the point where it was released unrated for fear it would get an NC-17 rating. While the film itself brought in mixed reviews, mainly due to its subject matter, Dawson's performance was highly praised, especially for an unknown actor. After Kids, Dawson began taking acting classes at the famed Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute. Dawson ended up sharing a class with her future co-star Hayden Christensen, as well as a 10-year-old Scarlett Johansson. Christensen and Dawson became very good friends during this time. Around this time, she was cast in her second feature film, Spike Lee's He Got Game, starring Denzel Washington and Ray Allen. This was a risk for Lee. Washington was a certified star by this point in his career and had worked with Spike previously, but filling the other two main roles with someone who had one of their acting credit and an NBA player with zero acting experience to his name was certainly not guaranteed to work out. However, this was not the case as the film was a hit, and was Lee's first movie to ever open #1 at the box office, and is still considered one of the best sports movies of all time. Dawson was once again praised for her role as the main character's girlfriend, although most of the fanfare went to Allen, as many were shocked a pro athlete could present a good as performance as he did. Dawson would later reunite with Spike Lee on his 2002 film 25th Hour. After the success of He Got Game, Dawson was able to land many more roles, and after a few performances in smaller projects between 1998 and 2000, she was cast in the live-action adaptation of Josie and the Pussycats. Dawson was cast as the band's bassist, Valerie, a role that Beyoncé also auditioned for. Starring alongside more established stars, Rachel Lee Cook and Tara Reid, this role was definitely a breakout for Dawson's career, even if it wasn't the box office hit the studio was hoping for. In the years since its release, the film has definitely gained a cult following, and Dawson and everyone involved in its creation still look back on it fondly.
I'm so glad that the film has found its audience and it's still beloved all these years later, 20 years later. It's so wild.
Throughout the early 2000s, Rosario Dawson was in a slew of big and memorable roles. This included Men in Black 2, Shattered Glass, Alexander, Sin City, Clerks 2, and Death Proof. While probably not the biggest out of those films, Shattered Glass is noteworthy as it's the first time she got to star alongside her old acting school friend Hayden Christensen. At this point, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones had come out and made Christensen known the world over. Also around this time, Dawson played Mimi in the movie adaptation of the hit Broadway musical Rent. a role that was very important to her as the themes of young people struggling to pay rent and living in squatter communities in New York City was a story she herself had lived growing up. Dawson was one of only 2 actors in the film that weren't a part of the original Broadway production, as the original performer for Mimi found out she was pregnant and was unable to reprise her role.
I ever saw something that highlighted my life story and made it seem awesome, because I grew up in a squat in the Lower East Side and I didn't know that folks that I grew up with could be protagonists.
Going into the 2010s, while continuing to work in live action both in TV and movies, she began adding voice acting to her resume as she lended her voice to a variety of projects. Most frequently, she has consistently been the choice to voice Wonder Woman in animated movies starting with 2015 with Justice League: Throne of Atlantis, and continuing for 6 more animated appearances of the character. 7 if you count Wonder Woman's small cameo in 2021's Space Jam movie.
Wonder Woman merchandise did very well this year. I can step up when the Wayne Foundation falls short.
You're kidding, right?
Funnily enough, she didn't play Wonder Woman in the Lego movie. However, she was cast in the much larger role of Barbara Gordon / Batgirl in the Lego Batman movie. In addition to doing voiceovers for animated movies, Dawson has also voiced characters in video games. This has included the game Syndicate, 2016's Ratchet & Clank, the Dishonored franchise, and she will appear in the upcoming game Dying Light 2: Stay Human, the sequel to 2015's hit zombie freerunning game. Another reoccurring character that became a memorable role for Dawson was that of Claire Temple, the nurse who cares for and works alongside superheroes within Netflix's Marvel Universe. Claire appeared in 5 out of the 6 Marvel Netflix series, with Punisher being the only exception, but to be fair, she did only appear in 1 episode of Jessica Jones. Dawson has said that she would be interested in returning to the role if the opportunity arises, and with Marvel's Netflix shows finally having slight crossover with the MCU, in some small roles in the movies and Disney Plus shows, it's possible that we could see Dawson back as this character at some point. In the beginning of 2017, there was a viral tweet suggesting that Rosario Dawson could be cast for the live-action version of the iconic Star Wars animated character Ahsoka Tano, who had only ever appeared in animated form throughout the duration of the Clone Wars series and Season 2 of Star Wars Rebels. The character hadn't been seen since her fight with Darth Vader in that season of Rebels, with her status left unknown. This tweet was accompanied by a fan illustration showing what Dawson could look like in the role. Dawson retweeted the statement saying yes please and including the hashtag #AhsokaLives. The fan hashtag hoping that the character would make a return. Ahsoka did make a return just a few months later with the release of the 4th and final season of Star Wars Rebels, but the tweet ended up making its way all the way to Dave Filoni, showrunner for both Rebels and Clone Wars, who co-created the character of Ahsoka with George Lucas. While this was still many years away from the inception of The Mandalorian, Filoni said that he always kept the idea of Dawson as Ahsoka in the back of his mind. While planning out The Mandalorian, Filoni said he brought up the idea of bringing Ahsoka into the show with series creator and co-writer Jon Favreau, who asked Filoni if he had anyone specific in mind for the role. To which Filoni responded that Rosario Dawson was top of his list. Filoni and Favreau called up Dawson and prepared some concept art to show their vision of her as the character, to which she immediately agreed to sign on for the role. Dawson had been interested in playing Ahsoka since seeing that tweet, but also had an enthusiasm for the part because of her closeness to Hayden Christensen, who obviously plays Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka's master and close friend throughout the Clone Wars series. The idea of playing the apprentice in live action opposite her longtime friend she met in acting class when she was 16 years old was something Dawson says that she had a strong interest in doing for a long time. And it appears like Dawson will eventually be able to fulfill that wish. After appearing as the character in 1 episode of The Mandalorian Season 2, titled The Jedi and written by Filoni, it was announced that Ahsoka will have her own live-action TV show coming in the near future. Not much is known about this show, but will most likely continue her journey that started at the end of Rebels and continued in The Mandalorian to seek out Grand Admiral Thrawn. At this point, it has been confirmed that Christensen will be appearing in the series at some fashion, which will make Dawson's dream of bringing the iconic pair of Anakin and Ahsoka together in live action a reality. As another fun fact about the upcoming series, it was recently announced that Mary Elizabeth Winstead will be joining the cast, which will mark the reunion for her and Dawson as the two worked together on Death Proof nearly 15 years ago. While the Ahsoka series has yet to air, Dawson continues to keep busy in the meantime. In 2021 and early 2022, she's the judge on the reality talent show The Go Big Show. She also starred alongside Michael Keaton in the hit Hulu miniseries Dope Stick, which explores the rise and effect of the Oxycontin epidemic. The series has received mounds of critical acclaim, and I personally believe it's one of the best shows to come out in 2021. With Rosario Dawson getting more and more impactful roles every year, and audiences everywhere being exposed to her vast body of work, it's safe to say she will continue to be an impactful and meaningful actress for the years to come.
Purple Hippo Cinema.